The air grows heavy, the heart slows, and the veil between worlds begins to thin. In that final fleeting moment, all the illusions of this life dissolve like mist under the sun. The wealth, the status, the ambitions, none of them follow. What remains is only the truth of your deeds, written in the scrolls that angels guard without error. And as your soul trembles on the edge of departure, unseen hands prepare to claim it, whether with mercy or with wrath. This is the journey that every soul must face, a path from which there is no turning back. And when the first step is taken, eternity has already begun. The sound of breath becomes shallow, faint, as if the body itself is reluctant to surrender. Around the bed, or perhaps the cold earth, faces blur and fade. The voices of loved ones once so familiar grow distant. They speak, they cry, they pray. But the one about to depart hears them as though from behind a wall of water. The senses turn inward, and the weight of the body feels like an anchor pulling the soul towards something unseen yet inevitable. The angel of death is already there. No mortal eyes can see him, yet his presence is overwhelming. For the righteous, he comes with a gentleness that eases the terror of the unknown. His approach like the first breeze of spring after a long winter. For the wicked, his arrival is a shadow over the sun, a tightening of the chest, a dread that claws at the heart. The soul knows, even if the tongue cannot speak, that its appointed hour has arrived. In that suspended moment between life and departure, memories flash, not in the random chaos of dreams, but in perfect sequence. Acts of kindness, prayers in the stillness of the night, secret sins thought forgotten, words spoken in anger, coins given in charity, all pass before the mind's eye. Time folds in on itself, and decades are relived in seconds. And then, like a pen lifted from paper, the writing of worldly deeds stops forever. The angels assigned to record the life's actions stand ready. The noble scribe to the right, who wrote every act of obedience and faith, watches with serenity. The one to the left, who recorded the misdeeds, waits in solemn silence. They will speak no more in this world, for their task is done. Now another set of angels will take over, the ones who will carry the soul to its next destination. If the life was one of faith and righteousness, the departing soul senses a light approaching. It is not sunlight nor moonlight, but a radiance that seems to welcome and embrace. The angel of death, Azrael, calls the soul softly, "O good soul, come out to the mercy of Allah and to his forgiveness." At that call, the soul slips free like water from a vessel. There is no struggle, no tearing, only release. It is met by angels with faces shining like the dawn, carrying shrouds from paradise, perfumed with musk. The scent fills the unseen air, and the soul feels an unfamiliar yet comforting lightness. But for the soul that denied the truth, the scene is starkly different. The angel of death is flanked by stern, dark-faced angels whose gaze pierces like fire. Their hands carry coarse, foul-smelling cloths from hell, and the very air seems to burn with their presence. Azrael calls, "O wicked soul, come out to the wrath of Allah." The soul resists, clinging desperately to the body, as if it could hide from its fate. The angels strike it, ripping it free like a thorn from wet wool, and the pain is beyond any agony known in life. For a moment, the body lies still, yet the soul is awake, more awake than it has ever been. It looks upon its lifeless form, upon the mourners or the empty room, knowing that this shell will soon return to dust. For the righteous, there is a strange peace and acceptance that what lies ahead is not annihilation, but the beginning of a far greater journey. For the wicked, terror takes hold, for they now see shapes and hear voices that no one else can perceive. The angels waste no time. The soul is wrapped in its shroud of paradise for the believer, of hell for the disbeliever, and the scent of its eternal home clings to it. Above, the gates of the heavens await. Some will open and welcome, others will remain barred. But the first step has been taken, and the crossing from this world to the next is complete. The earth has lost another traveler, and the realm of the unseen has gained another eternal guest. The darkness was overwhelming, yet it was not the darkness of night. It was heavier, thicker, pressing upon the soul with a weight that could not be measured. The grave had closed in, and all that was familiar was stripped away. There was no echo of the world left behind, only the damp earth and the unshakable silence. Then came the sound, the slow, deliberate scrape of something drawing nearer. Two figures emerged, not from a doorway or path, but as if shaped out of the darkness itself. Their presence was commanding, their gaze piercing in a way no mortal eyes could withstand. These were the angels of questioning, Munkar and Nakir, towering beyond human measure, their eyes sharp like blades, their voices resonating like distant thunder rolling through the earth. They approached with authority that froze the soul in place. "Who is your Lord?" they asked, not in curiosity, but in a way that made the question feel like the center of all existence. For those who had lived with faith firmly rooted in their hearts, the answer came not from hesitation or memory, but from a place deeper than the mind. "My Lord is Allah," the believer's soul would say, the words flowing like a truth long engraved into their being. The second question followed, "What is your religion?" And again the faithful answered with conviction, "My religion is Islam." And then the third, "What do you say about the man who was sent among you?" With a heart at peace they would reply, "He is Muhammad, the messenger of Allah." For them, the darkness would shift, the walls of the grave abandoned, light pouring in from an unseen horizon. A window to paradise would open, filling the air with scents sweeter than anything known in life. But for those whose faith was shallow, whose tongues had recited without the heart ever believing, the scene was terrifying beyond comprehension. The questions became like mountains pressing upon them. The tongue stumbled, the heart trembled, and no answer came except confusion. "I do not know. I only said what others said." Then the darkness tightened, the grave closing in until ribs pressed against ribs. A window to the fire would open, the stench and heat suffocating the soul. There was no escape, only the reality of truth now undeniable. Time in that place did not flow as it did in the world. It was neither day nor night, only the unending awareness of one's state. For the believer, the grave became a garden, a place of rest and anticipation for the promised meeting with their Lord. For the denier, it became a pit from which there was no relief. Every moment a reminder of choices unmade, of warnings ignored. The trial of the grave was not merely an interrogation. It was the unveiling of the soul's true self, the stripping away of all masks worn in life, leaving only the bare reality of belief or disbelief. Beyond the stillness of the grave, the world above moved on. Generations passed, civilizations rose and fell, but for the souls in Barzakh, the realm between death and resurrection, time was meaningless. Here, the believer and the wicked were separated by an unseen barrier, their conditions worlds apart. The believer reclined in a place unlike anything the world could offer. The air carried fragrances that never faded, and the sounds were of tranquility, soft murmurs of praise to Allah, the rustle of leaves from trees unseen. They were visited by a man whose face radiated beauty and peace. When asked, "Who are you?" Your presence brings comfort. He would smile and reply, I am your good deeds. They were never alone, for every act of sincerity they had done now stood by them in a form more loyal than any companion in life. In this place they were shown glimpses of their home in paradise, the rivers flowing beneath gardens, the light that seemed to have no source but Allah's mercy itself. But for the one who had turned away from truth, Barzakh was a prison with no walls. The grave pressed upon them until breath itself felt stolen. A figure approached, not beautiful but hideous, foul-smelling, with a voice like the grinding of stone. Who are you? The soul would ask in horror. I am your deeds, it would reply coldly, and I will never leave you. They were shown a place in the fire, flames rising and falling like living creatures, heat that burned without light. Every moment was a reminder of what could have been if they had heeded the call. Here there was no comfort, no escape from the reality they had earned. The days of Barzakh stretched endlessly until time itself lost meaning. And yet they knew, both the blessed and the condemned, that the day would come when even this waiting would end. The earth, which had long been silent, would one day tremble with a violence unknown to creation. It would not be the tremor of mountains shifting or storms raging, but the shuddering of the world itself reaching its final breath. On that day, the command of Allah would descend, and Israfil, the mighty angel, would raise the trumpet to his lips. The first blast would be unlike any sound that had ever existed. Its force would not only shake the skies and the earth, but tear apart the fabric of existence itself. Mountains would crumble as if they had never been solid. The seas would boil and merge. The stars would scatter like dust in the wind. Every living thing would collapse, its soul taken in an instant. The world would fall into a silence deeper than death, a stillness where no bird flew, no wind stirred, no voice called. The sun would be extinguished, the moon darkened, the heavens rolled up like a scroll. Nothing of the world would remain except what Allah willed. This was not merely the end of life, it was the undoing of creation. The moment the soul crossed into the unseen, the journey took a turn that the living could never truly fathom. Darkness pressed in from everyone by, yet it was not the darkness of night. It was the absence of the world itself. The body lay in the earth, but the soul was now in the vast expanse of the Barzakh, the realm between life and resurrection. There was no concept of time here, only the weight of waiting. For some, the waiting was accompanied by light, comfort, and a breeze from a paradise that soothed the heart. For others, it was suffocating, with a heat that burned without flame, and a silence heavy enough to break the mind. Angels came and went, carrying decrees from Allah, and the soul understood without words that everything ahead was already written. In this place, memories of the world appeared like distant dreams, faces of loved ones, moments of laughter, mistakes once thought small, but now unbearably large. The soul watched as its deeds, once invisible, took form, some appearing as a loyal companion offering comfort, others as looming shadows that whispered condemnation. Those who had lived in heedlessness found no one to speak for them, while those who had obeyed their Lord found the Barzakh to be a place of anticipation rather than dread. Every soul knew that this was not the end, only a waiting ground before the greatest upheaval the universe would ever witness. The mountains would be uprooted, the seas set ablaze, and the sky torn apart. But here, in this silent holding, the soul could only await the call that would shake all of creation awake. The command came when no one expected it. The first blast of the trumpet ripped through existence with a force beyond imagination. Sound itself became a weapon, shattering the order of creation. The earth convulsed violently, mountains crumbled into dust, and oceans frothed and boiled as if they were alive. The sky split open, revealing a blinding radiance, and the stars, once fixed in their places, were hurled into the void like sparks from a fire. Every living thing on earth fell, man, beast, bird, and jinn alike, crushed under the sheer terror of the sound. It was not merely heard, it was felt deep in the bones, shaking the soul itself. Even the angels trembled at the command of their Lord, and the great archangel Israfil, having fulfilled his role, stood silent in obedience. Then, without warning, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, only stillness. The universe lay dead. Time ceased to have meaning. The heavens and earth were no more than remnants. Every soul lay lifeless in the grip of the decree, awaiting the second command, the one that would bring them back to face what they had sent ahead for themselves. Then came the second blast. It was unlike the first, not a sound of destruction, but one of summoning. The earth, once barren, erupted with life. From every grave, every hidden resting place, the dead rose as if drawn by an irresistible force. Flesh returned to bone, veins filled with blood, and hearts began to beat again. But this time there was no veil between the soul and reality. People emerged in silence, their eyes waved, their faces pale, for they knew exactly where they were being called. The ground beneath their feet stretched endlessly, a plain with no mountains, no valleys, just the leveled earth of the gathering. Above them, the sky hung low, its light dim and strange, and the throne of Allah loomed in majesty beyond comprehension. Nations gathered behind their prophets, and leaders stood at the head of those they once ruled. The heat was unbearable. The sun brought near until sweat flowed in rivers, each person submerged according to their deeds. There was no escape, no shade except for those Allah had promised his mercy. The cries began, pleas for intercession, desperate calls for relief, but the day had no room for falsehood, and no power belonged to anyone except Allah. The records of deeds were brought forth, and every step, every word, every intention lay bare. The earth itself spoke, bearing witness to what it had seen, and the angels testified without error. Here in this vast plain, the truth could not be hidden, and every soul awaited the verdict that would seal its eternity. The earth quakes under a sky split with fire, the mountains shattering like fragile glass. Oceans roar as if they have broken free from their eternal boundaries, swallowing valleys and cities alike. The sun, once a blazing guardian of the day, dims into a dark, cold ember, while the moon bleeds red above the trembling horizon. Humanity stands in a chaos they cannot flee from. No fortress, no nation, no hiding place is untouched by the unraveling of the world. Trumpets sound again, not from human lips, but from the angel entrusted with the final call, and the sound penetrates every soul like a blade forged from light and thunder. The dead rise from every grave, ancient kings, forgotten peasants, warriors of old, scholars, tyrants, children and saints. None can resist the pull of the divine command. The earth pushes them upward, spitting out bones now clothed again in flesh, hearts beating in terror at what lies ahead. Naked, barefoot, and unarmed, they are herded toward an endless plain, one that has no valley to hide in and no mountain to shield them. The sky is gone, replaced by a canopy of divine light, and every soul knows that the one who created them is about to question them. Billions upon billions stand shoulder to shoulder, yet no one speaks. The only sound is the trembling of breaths and the pounding of hearts. each aware that this is not a dream nor a vision, but the final reality promised since the beginning of time. Even the most arrogant who once denied the truth now find their tongues tied in fear, their eyes searching for escape but finding none. Angels fill the horizon, standing in perfect rows, their faces solemn, their presence overwhelming. The books of deeds, once hidden from sight, are now brought forth, volumes that carry every word spoken, every secret thought, every action taken in light or darkness. The throne of Allah is brought near, carried by angels of a magnitude beyond mortal comprehension, their forms blazing with purity. Around it flows a river of light, and from it radiates a majesty that causes the firmest hearts to shatter. All stand frozen as the judgment begins. Names are called one by one, and no name is skipped. Some step forward in trembling hope, others dragged by chains forged from their own sins. Witnesses are brought forth, not only other humans, but the very limbs of a person, the ground they walked on, the eyes they used, the hands they wielded. There are no false testimonies here, no bribes, no deceptions, only truth unveiled in its purest, most terrifying form. Among the crowd are those who glow with light so bright that the darkness of the plain cannot touch them. These are the ones who stood firm in faith despite the storms of life, whose patience in trial now becomes their crown. Others are shrouded in shadows so heavy that they bend under their own weight, their chains clinking as angels of wrath approach them. The scales are set, vast and unshakable, each soul's eternity hanging on the weight of their deeds. Good and evil are not measured by human standards here. They are weighed by the measure of the one who sees all. Then comes the moment when destinies are sealed. For some, the scales tip toward mercy, and they are clothed in garments of paradise, their faces shining, their burdens lifted forever. For others, the scales sink into the abyss, and they are seized by angels with eyes like burning stars, dragged toward a horizon that burns with unquenchable fire. Yet even now, the voice of Allah calls to His servants, granting forgiveness to whom He wills, showing a mercy so vast that it drowns the despair of some in a sudden ocean of hope. When all have been judged, the great separation occurs. The righteous are guided to gates that glow with the light of dawn, where rivers of milk and honey flow, and the air carries the scent of eternal peace. The damned are driven towards a land that offers no light, no water, only heat and anguish. The plain of judgment begins to empty, but its echoes will remain for all eternity. Above all of it, the throne remains, unshaken, unchallenged, and eternal, bearing witness that this was always the truth and that the promise has been fulfilled.